Welcome back to another week of Instigating with Clarkie and Drury, with myself, Ryan Drury, and of course, the indisputably awesome Chris Clark. You can't imitate this guy, the inimitable Chris Clark. Here we are. We're going to get to some instigating today, brought to you by Coolbet, the Listowel Squash Courts, and our friends at Listowel Vision Care, and see the game. We're very pleased to be joined by our good friend from the Windy City, one of the best independent beat reporters out there, and the host of the excellent podcast, which you should all download and listen to after this. Tell me a story I don't know. It's George Ofman. George, how are you, man?
I'm fine, guys. Nice to be with you tonight.
It's great to have you with us.
And Ryan, hold on. I'm going to interrupt you. Like I usually do. Do you know why it's called the Windy City?
Well, it's windy there.
No, that's not why.
And there was a terrible fire
that's the not wind. Why.
No, I think Clarkie knows.
George, fill us in on the politicians.
Well, no. You. That's it. You know.
Well, I heard there was some loudmouth politicians way back when, and they called
politicians in the late 1800s were called windbags. And that's how Windy City came about.
There you go.
It is windy. And then, by the way, the politicians are still windbags.
Yes, they are. That seems to be a universal theme. Thank God this isn't a political podcast. Yeah. Hey, you learn something new every day. I legitimately did not know that. And that's why George is on the show. He's got all the facts.
I do too, Ryan, but
not as much as George. George, there's a lot of fun stuff to talk about in sports right now. The Olympics are on, lots of controversy over there, but being that you are where you are in the Windy City, let's talk a little bit about the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, we dug into it a lot last week when the town hall happened. The day after, we talked with our friend Dave Poulin and got his thoughts on it. The media up here has been sounding off on it, as I'm sure they still are in Chicago. First, just your general impressions of what you saw transpire at that town hall and how you felt afterwards.
Well, I think everybody felt the same way. It was a disaster. Rocky, he apologized later that evening. I think that might have been a forced apology, but then he apologized to the writers again. He had a meltdown at a bad time. You're having a town hall with your franchise already in a black hole. I didn't think you can go further in a black hole, but they did. And what kind of town hall was it? It's so funny, but back in 2004, ESPN ranked the Blackhawks as the worst professional franchise in the United States.
And they were.
In 2011, they were the best franchise in the United States. And now they're the worst franchise again. It's amazing how you can go from the outhouse to the penthouse and then right back to the outhouse, only deeper. So it didn't come off very well. And Danny Wirtz, his son, who runs the team now, is playing damage control. I mean, forget the fact that he's looking for a, quote, general manager, in essence, will be in charge of the franchise. I mean, he's playing damage control, and that's not what you really want to do. The other thing that's so interesting is when Rocky took over from Bill Wirtz, who was really despised. Imagine a Wirtz guy is despised, and then the other one is people are bowing to him after a few years. Rocky Wirtz was the greatest guy on earth, brought back Pat Foley, came at the right time. The Blackhawks are winning. They won 3 Stanley Cups. And then we find out what happens later, and everybody goes into a bunker, and then they're denying, and then they hire a firm, and the firm says, no, you guys made a big mistake. So they're looking, right now, that franchise, the arrow is pointed down.
What do you think that's half the problem, George, when you said they went into a bunker? Like, they weren't out in front of this. We saw in Toronto with Maple Leaf Gardens sexual scandal that they came out in front of it and met the media and answered questions. Why didn't Rocky do that before?
That's a good question, Clarkie. I wish I could answer that, but that was a terrible mistake. However, remember when it happened? It happened over 10 years ago. It was kind of swept under the rug, mostly by John McDonough, who I might add, nobody can find. I've tried to call John, and you can't. John has escaped, and he well should. Look at the fallout from all of this. Not only was Stan Bowman fired, but basically Joel Quenneville was. And they basically said, Joel, step down or you're going to be fired. Okay? Not even the coach of the Blackhawks, coach of the Florida.
And I don't even know why they gave him the option.
Well, I probably one of those that where he knew it was going to come, and so he said, it doesn't matter.
I know it doesn't matter, but they could have, in my mind, they could have hammered it home a little bit more that they care about these things and they're not going to put up with these things.
It's sad.
Yeah.
It's really, the franchise is sad on the ice. The franchise is sad off the ice. I interviewed John McDonough in 2000, and I want to say it was maybe 18. And I asked him a point blank question. I said, do you think with this group you can still win a Stanley Cup? Knowing in my own mind they had no chance. Things were already unraveling. And he said, of course we could. And you could see what's happened. I mean, the whole thing has been so many horrible moves by Stan Bowman. I mean, just look at all the first round draft picks he got rid of. And imagine if he had Artemi Panarin now, what kind of franchise this might be, a little better. But the fact of the matter is they've just made so many bad moves on the ice, off the ice. And it's going to take a long time. Whoever comes in here and tries to clean this mess up, it's going to take a while.
How are the fans reacting in Chicago? Ryan and I were talking about that last week, where it was a town hall that Rocky had the meltdown in, and there was fans there. Like, how are the fans? Are they stopping going to the games? Do they see any reduction in ticket sales?
Yes.
And I can't understand why no one stood up in that town hall and called them out. But
I'm surprised as well. And yes, even the secondary market is taking a beating. People are starting to stay away. Mm-hmm. They stayed away from the Bulls. I know that a couple of years ago. This is a franchise that was averaging 20,000 a game, and I was covering a game back then, and there may have been 9,000 in the building. Well, guess what? They're filling the house again. In the case of the Blackhawks, yes, people are not coming. They're not coming, I don't think so much because of the travesty off the ice. It's the travesty on the ice. Mm-hmm. The product is awful. And, you can do all the public relations that you want, but if you do not have a product and then you have all the other things that are taking place, you are going to lose fans. I mean, why are you going to pay an exorbitant amount of money to come see this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely troubling. And like you said, it is so stark because I remember in the mid 2000s, I think everybody that watched hockey did. I mean, when your team went into Chicago, it was point night. Like, let's have our best players get 5-6 points. No one's there to watch. No one's watching on television. And then they turned it around. They're the model franchise for not just the NHL, but you could argue for a 3-4 year period, sports. And now here they are. And yeah, I agree. It's mainly because of the product on the ice, even though I think most of us would say, the Kyle Beach travesty and the other victims involved should be the main focus, which for many it is. And that's good. But yeah, you look at this on ice product too. And Jonathan Toews, he had that mystery health problem last year. He still doesn't look like Jonathan Toews of old. Patrick Kane still looks pretty good. I wonder how much longer he'll be around. Barrett, that's a tough salary to move. Marc-Andre Fleury is the reigning Vezina Trophy winner. He's played exceptionally well. I don't know if he lasts till the end of the year, but no matter what we say about this on-ice product, my number one question for you, George, do you believe, like many people and friends of ours, Steve Dangle was very pointed with his words on his podcast, Clarkey, do you believe Rocky Wirtz should resign?
He's not going to. It's not a matter of whether he should step down. I don't think he's going to. Whether he allows his son, Danny, to take complete control of the franchise and then hire the right people. Because understand, Danny Wirtz is not a hockey expert. It's the same with the Bears for years. George McCaskey is not a football guy. He has to find the right football people. He hopes he's found them now. But I don't think Rocky Wirtz is going to step aside. I think his ego will not let him step aside. Maybe his son and Jamie Faulkner can convince him, let us do our job. Let us hire the right people and let's see how we can get out of this. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Toews and Kane have, I think it's 2 more years after this. They have no movement contracts.
Yeah.
However, Toews is basically untradeable at this stage of his career. Patrick Kane is not. This is all up to Patrick Kane. You walk up to Patrick Kane and say, Patrick, do you still want to play here? We are going to be bad for the next couple of years. If you want, We can find you a home. Trust me, there will be a team that will find a way to fit that $10 million salary in for the next couple of years. Because that's Patrick Kane. They'll find a way. That is about the only way that the Blackhawks are going to be able to recoup is by trading that kind of player. They have to keep DeBrincat because he's young and on his way.
Yeah.
But and listen, I'm not advocating it. Patrick Kane he's really become a model citizen. He's a sensational hockey player. But those days are long gone, and you're not winning with him. But unfortunately for the Blackhawks and Stan Bowman, they signed these guys to these ridiculous no movement contracts. Now, they were able to move Duncan Keith because Duncan Keith's contract wasn't that restrictive. It was $5+ million. But I mean, Brent Seabrook, oh my goodness, lucky that he retired. And Jonathan Taves, who really, wonderful guy, but clearly I think you can see on the ice that he's long past it. So they've got so many issues.
And one is
really do
trying to find a new general manager. And you say there's some guys at the top who aren't really hockey guys. How are they going to hire a general manager? And what names do you hear being thrown around?
I mean, and the names are escaping me at the moment. I think the former assistant general manager of the Canadians, a guy from Carolina. They actually interviewed a guy from the Chicago Cubs. And I think they wanted to get an idea of management style. I don't think he might be part of the franchise's management style. That's what they said we're going to look outside the organization, outside the sport to learn more. Yes. Here's what they did. They took Eddie Olczyk, Marian Hossa, and Patrick Sharp, and they said, these are the guys that are going to help us find that general manager. Now, they're not going to hire a team president, but it sounds like the general manager is going to have a lot of power. A lot of people around here said, you're missing it. The guy that you want to hire is your broadcaster, and that's Eddie. And I know Eddie Olczyk would love to have that job. I think he's interviewed for 2 other jobs of similar fashion, New Jersey and Philadelphia. But they didn't. And so those are the guys that they are leaning on to help them select the next general manager. So you do have 3 relatively intelligent hockey people to help them. Mm-hmm. Eddie Olczyk makes so much sense on so many levels, and that's why it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, Eddie would be fantastic. He would be fantastic, and he loves the Blackhawks, cares so much about the franchise. Yes. I know that Peter Chiarelli's name was thrown around.
Yes.
I know
Peter Chiarelli.
I know I read whispers about Don Waddell, who is a tremendous talent evaluator.
He's a good guy.
I wonder maybe, Clarky, if O-Dog's favorite guy, the Fergler,
JFJ. John Ferguson Jr.
Yeah. Maybe he's involved. I don't know. Arizona wanted him.
Well, Tuukka Rask retired, so maybe JFJ can come back now out of hiding.
Yeah, I don't know.
After he traded Tuukka away from Toronto.
You mentioned the Bears earlier. Let's move on to that. The Super Bowl's this weekend. But before I ask you your thoughts on the matchup, which is a really, really intriguing game, let's just talk about the Bears really quick. Disappointing season, I think. Kyle Nagy is gone. Yes, Kyle Nagy's gone. Justin Fields had flashes of what we think he can become if everything falls his way as an NFL quarterback. But overall, let's just be honest, he looked overwhelmed 90% of the time. What is your read on the Bears and where they go from here? Like, did you see enough out of Fields to go, okay, he is the guy we can build around? And if that's the case, what does that look like?
Well, at the moment, they don't have a choice. That's the guy they're going to have to build around. And that's why they basically vanquished the entire management team. They have a completely new management team and all new coaches. And they had to do that because the previous regime just didn't do it right. When you go out in the draft and you move up to number 2 and you pick the wrong quarterback, that could set your franchise back a decade. We are now in year 4. The idea was the defense is really good. If the quarterback fits in right, we can win games. They won 12 games. They were 12-4, and then everything went down from there. That's what happens when you pick the wrong quarterback. So Justin Fields falls in their lap. But I mean, he was poorly coached last year. Yes, I think he's got a high ceiling. Is he a franchise type of quarterback, a great quarterback? I don't know. Will he be a really good quarterback? I don't know. Could he be a bust? I don't know. Seriously, it's this group that's coming in that also has an issue. Other talent. They need a better offensive line. They need top-notch receivers for him to throw to. And, they don't have a first-round draft pick because they traded some of those away for Khalil Mack. So they're also devoid of top picks. It's kind of like, I said this before, it's kind of like the Blackhawks. The Bears and the Blackhawks we're on similar paths. Going to the Bears now have made moves to get better. And next year, they will have an easier schedule. They'll probably have a younger team. This year, they have the oldest team and the toughest schedule in the NFL. Okay, that's part of it. But, I mean, they were awful. And they had to get rid of the management. So we'll see. I mean, there are a lot of Bears fans here are very skeptical, and well, they should be, of what they have done in the offseason. They thought they would go out and get an offensive type of guy to run the team. Instead, they got a defensive coordinator to run the team. They've got both of these guys are unproven. You never know about a coordinator, how they'll do. They bypassed several guys with experience. Jim Caldwell was one guy who's proven that he can win games. He actually won games with the Detroit Lions, if that's possible to believe. And they went in this direction. So it remains to be seen. It can't get much worse. I suggest it probably will get a little better.
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, you mentioned going the defensive route. Just off the top of my head, I have no idea what it's taking so long for an NFL team to hire Eric Bieniemy, who is running the offense in Kansas City. I just have absolutely no clue what this guy needs to do to get a head coaching job.
The word I keep hearing is that he doesn't interview well, but you know what? If he coaches well, that's all that counts.
Yeah, I mean, his results on the field speak for themselves. I don't know. The Super Bowl, what's your call here? I mean, Bengals, Rams, this is a hell of a matchup. Two really good quarterbacks at opposite ends of their careers. It's a tough one to read.
It is tough for me to read. I think the Rams are going to win this game and convincingly.
Yeah.
I think their defense is very, very stout. They've got Hall of Fame players on that defense.
Yes.
And remember, the Bengals offensive line is the worst in football. You are talking about a team in the Super Bowl, mind you, with the worst offensive line in the league. Remember, they lost 7 games, and one of them was to the Bears. I like Joe Burrow. I think he's going to be a wonderful quarterback. And Matthew Stafford, the key for him is to try not to make a mistake. But the Rams have too many weapons. I think they're going to win 27-17. I think it might be more than that. They're just a better team. But you know what? You never know. Look at the way the playoffs have gone. Every playoff game, I think, has been determined on the last play. So that would be nice in this Super Bowl, honestly. But I think the Rams are just that much better.
I do too, top to bottom. No argument defensively, they're better. Donald and Von Miller, I mean, erase everybody on the Bengals side of that side of the ball defensively. Let's talk baseball real quick. Of course, Cubs and White Sox.
Are they playing
are they going to play, George? What do you think?
Well,
it seemed like they made a little bit of progress today, but
felt that way.
That's the DH and a few other things, and now we'll see whether or not the owners make a proper move towards the players. They know they don't want to lose the time. The players don't. This is always a game of chicken. And to be honest with you, right now the chickens have been the owners. They really have to show up with legitimate proposals to these players. There's always that optimism, but until I see an agreement, I'm not that optimistic. I'm glad the DH is finally in the National League. What is it now? 49 years later,
yeah,
1973, finally in the National League. I mean, I like strategy, but it's about time. We were talking to people about this today. There are 15 new jobs now in the National League. Think about it, 15 new jobs. It also means National League teams are going to have to pay a lot more money now. They're going to be saddled with these DHs that they have to go out and either get or cultivate. So, and there's some teams that probably will go out and get some of these guys like Schwarber, who's available. And I've mentioned the White Sox left fielder Jimenez. I think they'd be great to be in a trade for a National League team. But look, we saw what happened a couple of years ago and how both sides squabbled. And, the owners got to win because the players were not smart. They're much smarter now. I think the owners know that. And I think the game really needs to have an agreement in place so that they can get at least a month of spring training. And that's got to be done, in 3 weeks? So they don't have a lot of time.
They don't. Yeah. Rob Manfred came out today on Thursday, the 10th here, and basically confirmed that the owners are on board with the universal DH and they're on board with the draft lottery system.
That's very important, by the way. That is a very important move, because that will help stimulate and maybe get rid of the idea that there's, that teams can tank. That's a major problem in a lot of sports, and certainly in baseball. So I think that was a big move.
I do too. And getting rid of the compensatory pick system was a big thing too. I mean, we saw what the Mets did this year with Kumar Rocker. That was bizarre. It was bizarre that they didn't sign this kid. It's super weird. I think really what it comes down to, and George, I'd love your thoughts on this. For the players, I really think they would be happy. Yeah, the universal DH, the draft lottery system, less tanking, sure. I really think that for them, it comes down to the service time manipulation and the way free agency works. It is obscene the amount of money that these owners have and constantly cry poor that they don't. And they take in way more money than, let's just say, NHL teams. And NHL players are hitting free agency way sooner than baseball players. It makes no sense.
Well, but there's a salary cap in the NHL. There's the only sport without a salary cap is Major League Baseball, and the luxury tax has really not done a great deal of.
They got to get rid of that,
because some teams can afford to go over the salary cap, and they have done that. I think that the service time thing was big here with Chris Bryant. I think that's where that can of worms opened the biggest. And the Cubs were severely criticized for that. So, yes, I think that's going to happen. But the one thing that I don't like, and I hope the owners are able to find a way to get around this, is these 7, 8, 9-year contracts in which a player has an out clause. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
There should be a mutual agreement. The out clause can go both ways.
Yeah.
If a player isn't doing well after 3 years, the owners have the right, or the team, to say goodbye. Because otherwise, the player who may not be doing very well can say, I'll stay for the next number of years. Jason Hayward's a perfect example. A terrific citizen, an outstanding defensive player, really wasn't the type of guy back when they signed him 7 years ago at $8 or $20 million a year. That was a big contract. Well, he had an out clause. Well, after a couple of 3 years, whenever that out clause was, he wasn't going to leave because he wasn't doing very well. Well, then the owners are saddled. I would love to see an agreement in which that out clause, that out clause would be a two-way street. You're doing well? Oh, okay. You can leave if you want to. You're not doing well. We can kick you out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't disagree with that at all. And I mean, you could build bonus structures into that as incentive to continue playing well. I mean, yeah, you see it. Teams always overreach sometimes and spend an obscene amount of money on guys. We're going to see it again whenever baseball does start up. I mean, Nick Castellanos is a guy, I think they're talking about this guy. He's 31 years old, that he's going to get a 7 or 8 year deal. Nick Castellanos isn't going to hit like he does at 38, but someone's going to give him $25 million a year. They
might, and you're always paying for the front end. That's what the Cubs did with John Lester.
Yep.
They paid him on the front end, and really, to be honest with you, he's one of the best free agent signings in this town, period, because he helped them win a World Series. They put them on the map. So when you do that, you are paying for the front end. And, yes, so you want to sign Castellanos to a 7-year deal? You might get 4 or 5 years out of him. But if you win, is it worth it? That's the key to a team that wants to sign Nick Castellanos, who, by the way, was terrific with the Cubs, and they didn't re-sign him.
Yep, you're right.
Can we just get something in the new CBA to reduce the time of games, the length of games? Because the fan, it's unwatchable sometimes.
Pitch clock.
Imagine
that.
Me covering these games.
Yeah, I know.
For over 40 years.
Yeah.
That when we started watching those games, and I started covering them in 1978 or 79, they weren't nearly this long.
No.
To where when you went to a game, we were just sitting in the press box going, could you please speed the game up?
Mm-hmm.
I wish there were 20 Mark Burleys out there, because every time he pitched for the White Sox, the game was under 2 hours.
Yeah.
We loved him. Matter of fact, when we'd interview him, we'd say, thank you, Mark, for being
exactly. Yeah. We saw that too.
A pitch clock is one, a hit clock is another. In other words, the pitcher's got to pitch at a certain time. The batter's got to be in the batter.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not sure how you're going to be able to do it. Otherwise, you're not going to play 7-inning games. Forget that. That's not going to work. I mean, this is what baseball has become. Statistically, this is the big problem, because you have teams like the Yankees and the Red Sox and others who are following suit. We're going to take more pitches.
Yep.
Hey, that's a good idea. But taking more pitches lengthens the game.
Mm-hmm.
Who are the teams that take the most pitches? The Red Sox and the Yankees. Who play the longest games in baseball? Take two guesses. The Red Sox and the Yankees. But you can't legislate that.
No, you can't legislate that. But I like all the conferences with the catchers and the pitchers. Oh my gosh, like it's painful.
They got
painful.
They got to limit it more. Clarky, before we let George go, I know you wanted to ask him just a little bit about the media side.
Yeah, so like we talked a lot, Ryan and I, about the media landscape here in Canada, with sports radio going down the tubes. Quite frankly, they're just cheap talent right now, and they don't have the big names that we are used to. Mm-hmm. What is happening in the U.S. in your market? You worked at the Score there for years.
Well, I mean, the ratings are down for sports radio here, pretty much because it's a Bears town, so the ratings are a little higher. But I think people have kind of shied away a bit. The talent level here is okay. There are 2 sports radio stations, and they're decent. And it was like a couple of years ago, not even that long, that the morning show on WSCR was number 4 in the market, period, 2554, period. They dropped a bit. So people were listening. I mean, they'll listen when you've got teams that are doing well, or in the case of the Bears, if they're not doing well. Hockey, by the way, unlike in your city, does not play at all. When the Hawks were good, it played. Right now, out of 5 professional teams, the Blackhawks are 6th. That gives you an idea of where hockey plays in this town. Other than that, the media landscape is what it is. I was let go from WBBM News Radio a year and a half ago. Why? Because sports anchors and reporters are kind of dinosaurs, and I was the dinosaur of the dinosaur because of this thing. Okay, that's technology, and that's taken away a lot of jobs. What sports radio really needs, it needs to be freshened up, because it gets tedious. You need to do something a little different. You got to put on some kind of special programming that might draw people, whether it's a quiz show or something else that gives them a little bit of something else to listen to. You make it into a podcast, you might be able to make it into a show. But otherwise, I listen. I mean, I know the guys that are here. Sometimes it's interesting. But if I'm listening to Bears talk 24/7, I'm not listening. I'm turning it off. So and even the Bulls are playing very well right now. They're getting some decent play here, but it's really pretty much about the Bears and the Cubs and the White Sox when they're playing. And I think when the veil of all this crap that's taking place in baseball is lifted, maybe you'll get a little better rating for sports talk. I just don't know what the landscape is in Toronto. But it's not that bad here.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say what you just described is somewhat similar to what we're seeing here. Yeah. It's very similar. George, before we let you go, we really appreciate your time. I do want to ask you give me one quick prediction here, because this guy's still a free agent. Is Carlos Rodon going to come back to the White Sox? No. Where do you think he lands?
I'm not sure where he's going to go. I like Carlos Rodon, but I said it 5 years ago. He is an injury waiting to happen. And he is going to continue being an injury waiting to happen. When he has a breakout year as he did, suddenly after a while, that 98-mile-an-hour fastball went down to 92, because he's built like an ox. So any team that takes him, caveat emptor, beware buyer of Carlos Rodon. You don't want to give him a long-term deal. You don't want to give him a lot of money. He's got to prove himself. And what he will prove is he can't make it through a whole season.
I agree with you.
And the White Sox need a lefty. Trust me, they've got Dallas Keuchel. Dallas Keuchel can't pitch anymore. So
No, he cannot.
it'll be interesting to see what they do when free agency begins or when they make a trade. They could use another solid pitcher, and they've got the type of team that they can make some moves to get that. But no, I'm not sure who's going to go after Carlos Rodon. I mean, he could be a sleeper, but you're not going to pay him a lot. Let him prove himself.
I'll quickly tell you where he's going to go. The LA Angels. They will pay him because they're desperate.
Well, they've not had much pitching, and Joe Madden needs some pitching. Yeah, that's been their problem the whole time. Is they've got a decent lineup with some pretty good star players there. You know that. But yeah, the pitching has been a problem with them. So maybe he will, and maybe he'll succeed. Look, he's a really good guy, but we've seen athletes like this. Injury-prone athletes, they stay injured.
They certainly do. George, we really appreciate your time. He is George Ofman, one of the best independent beat reporters in that Windy City. And you should also all listen to his podcast, Tell Me a Story I Don't Know. He's got great guests on there, and he's been a great guest on this show. George, we really appreciate your time, my friend. Thanks for doing this.
My pleasure. Clarky, I hope to talk to you soon. All of you guys, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
We will.
It certainly has. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, some NHL news, big news, coaching changes, arena agreements being signed in the desert. We got a lot to dig into next here on Instigating with Clarky and Drury. Welcome back to Instigating with Clarky and Drury, brought to you as always by Coolbet, the Listowel Squash Courts, and our friends at Listowel Vision Care and See the Game. We appreciate our friend George Ofman from the Windy City and the podcast Tell Me a Story I Don't Know for joining us to talk about the Chicago sports scene, baseball kind of in general, of course, the Blackhawks. And speaking of hockey in the NHL, some more hammers dropped today, Clarky, on this Thursday. It's February 10th, and the Edmonton Oilers have said goodbye to Dave Tippett. Jay Woodcroft is going to take over their coach.
Yeah. Okay.
He's from Bakersfield. He's the AHL guy. And also,
so he's a better coach. He's a better coach than Dave Tippett.
Well, we don't know. Do we?
Come on. Ken Holland has a problem in the net, and he is blaming his coach and taking the blame off him. Well, I just think it's a joke. It's a joke.
It's the old adage, show me a good coach, I'll show you a good goalie, and vice versa.
Right. And you know what? Sorry, but like we just talked to George Ofman about how bad the Chicago Blackhawks are. Well, if you watched the game last night, that's the guy they need in net in Edmonton, Marc-Andre Fleury. And I would think if Marc-Andre agreed to a trade, that Edmonton's got to be number one on the list. He's got to be. They got to fix their problem in net. It's unbelievable how bad they are.
He would immediately fix their problem. My wonder is how hot to trot Ken Holland is at giving up a sizable amount of assets. And let's be honest, clearing out quite a bit of salary. Like we're talking about, not Draisaitl McDavid, but we're probably talking about Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and they have depth scoring problems already. We're probably talking about Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Kyler Yamamoto, a first-round pick, in the very least a second-round pick, potentially two or three second-rounders to get this guy in there. And Chicago would probably also ask for more because they'd have to even still probably retain some salary on Marc-Andre Fleury. How much does Ken Holland want to do that for a guy who, while still talented, Vezina Trophy winner?
I tell you what,
38, Clarky.
I'll tell you what. If he doesn't, he won't be around. Well, so he's got to convince his bosses that I got to do this. We have a good team. We get a goalie. We get hot. We get in the playoffs. Hey, look at what happened last year. Anything can happen.
Yeah.
If he doesn't fix it, he is gone. And in fact, I would fire him after the trade deadline if he doesn't fix it. Right away, gone. Because really, there's nothing for a general manager to do after a trade deadline except sit and watch the games. Like, really. I'm being a little facetious there.
No, I know. It's difficult, right? Because he is older, and they've already got a guy there, Mike Smith, who's been there a number of years, who's older. Now, Mike Smith is not at the level that Fleury still is, and Fleury's an all-time great goalie. He's got a first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt.
And he stole the game last night. He had over 40 saves.
He did. He had 40 saves, and he was fantastic. Now, so that's my question. But when you look around the rest of the league, who is available that's younger? Like, do they look at Philip Grubauer, who has had a very poor first season in Seattle, but he was great in Colorado? That was with Colorado, but do they look at, I know Anthony Stewart the other night suggested Ville Husso, who's been very good for the St. Louis Blues in Jordan Binnington's stuttered absences. Ville Husso, very good young goalie, highly rated prospect too when he was picked. Do they,
Peter Mrazek.
Peter Mrazek,
as much
Jake
as I
Allen.
Like Peter Mrazek's better than Mike Smith.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Mike Smith can't stay healthy.
Jake Allen, there's another perfect
Jake
guy.
Allen, I don't know. Yeah, who else is there out there? Right, like that's probably
Carey Price.
Well, salary issues getting Fleury. You're not getting him. I don't know about that. It's a very difficult thing. I mean, hey, like, just speaking personally, like my Caps, they need to get a goalie. Their goalies suck. It's an interesting market, and Edmonton's got problems. I read a crazy stat today. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, the first overall pick, believe his year was 2011 or 2012. It's his 12th head coach in 11 seasons. 12 head coaches.
And that's what I told you about before with Connor McDavid. There's not a hope in hell that this guy is going to re-sign here.
McDavid,
I think it's his eighth.
I think it's his 8th coach in 7 seasons. This is his 7th year. Yeah, 2015. Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's such a mess. They've gotten all of this draft capital and all these unbelievably talented players, and they still can't get it right because it's easy to draft the big guys in the first 5 picks. Teams still screw them up. Yes, Alexander Dag, but it's easy to get those guys. Nail Yakupov.
Edmonton Oilers.
It's easy to get those guys.
Yeah.
What's not easy is filling it out with good depth picks and being like Tampa and finding Palat and Killorn and all these guys. That's not easy. That's what separates the great teams from the good teams. Now, Dominique Ducharme also relieved of his duties in Montreal. My Caps are currently, as we record this show, beating up on them 4-1 right now, and that better hold or I'm going to flip
Billy Idol's gone.
Yeah. So Billy Idol's gone.
St. Louis, the great NHL coach. They bring him in, Martin St. Louis.
Were you super surprised by it? I
was super surprised. Believe me, I don't spend a lot of time worrying about the Montreal Canadiens. I kind of wish they were a little better right now because then it'd be a little bit more fun poking fun at my friends that are Habs fans. But right now, it's so embarrassing for them. Like you're
Arizona's better.
You don't even want to poke fun at them because they're so terrible. Like this team is awful, absolutely awful. If they can unload some guys, they have to try to do it. But yeah, Martin St. Louis, that came right out of left field for me. Never heard his name ever being rumored to be an NHL coach. He's an interim again, right? They've named another interim coach. Like they did when Ducharme first took over.
Now,
he was brilliant. He took them to the final, so they gave him a full-time job. But anyway, he's gone too. So yeah,
it's bizarre. And like Marty St. Louis, who, well, we're about to find out what he has as a coach. And I mean, he's taking over a disastrously bad team that's hurt, overaged, underachieving. Like everything that could be wrong is wrong with that team. Yeah. And he said, I want to be here for a long time. Now he is francophone. He is one of the best NHL players of his generation. He was an unbelievable player and a very intelligent player, one of the smallest guys to ever play in the league. Super intelligent, can see the ice. But again, my question here, and I know he's not Wayne Gretzky, guys that are like that sometimes have a tough time translating that knowledge that they can compute here.
What's his coach? What is his
and get it
background?
To here?
Ryan, what is his coaching background?
He does not have a coaching background. So now, that doesn't mean that he can't be a good coach.
Yeah, okay, but like you're going to start in the NHL to be a good coach. Like
it is bizarre, and he is getting this off the back of his name as a player. There is zero doubt about that. Zero.
Yeah, absolutely.
And time is going to tell because, again, like I said, Wayne Gretzky, smartest hockey player of all time, he could not translate what he knew
for sure
and saw those players in Arizona. Yeah. Could he have done it in Boston or Chicago or LA or something? I don't know. Mm-hmm. But that's my question here. I do not foresee Martin St. Louis being there for more than another calendar year. Because keep in mind here, now Montreal's got plenty of money. Money's not their problem, but keep in mind, they're still paying Claude Julien $5 million till the end of this year.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have to pay Dominique Ducharme, what is it, $1.8 million for a couple more years.
Yeah.
He signed a 3-year deal.
Montreal's biggest problem is they went down the same path as the Leafs did for a lot of years, just trying to make the playoffs, doing what they can. The Leafs got better when they tanked and they were crap, and they drafted the top guys well, and they got a lot better real quickly.
And they were lucky.
Montreal has not been a good team for a long time. Yes, they made it to the finals last year. I know that. But I said at the time, they're not that good of a team. They're riding a hot goalie. They're riding the rules the way they were. And I bet a guy last year who we had a bet, you know him, Tom Williscraft. He works at the radio station. We had a bet last year in the playoffs. As soon as Montreal beat the Leafs, I said, okay, double or nothing, Montreal doesn't make the playoffs this year. And he goes, you're on. They'll make the playoffs. What do you got? Okay, Tom. We're even. Let's just say we're even now. But
you're going to give him like a mercy layoff of the best. It's this bad.
No, there's no mercy layoff. I'm just saying there's no way Montreal's making the playoffs. I won the bet. But here's the deal. They need to tank. They need to just finish in last and hope they win the lottery. That's the only way they're going to get better.
Well, and what they want to do is do the same thing next year.
Yes.
Because if they could get theoretically Shane Wright, potentially, you know, or Geeky or Cooley or one of those guys in the top 3, and then next year get Mitchkoff.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it's the year after they want to really do bad.
Well, some guy named Connor Bedard,
right?
That goal he scored the other night,
nasty,
disgusting. That's
now,
the
hold
goal
on.
of the year.
Before we wrap this up, there's been a lot of discussion, and the boys at TSN today were talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
That the NHL is discussing the Zegras, the what he did in the All-Star game with the puck on the stick, and if it should be allowed. I told you 2 years ago, Ryan, this was coming to this, and okay, yes, I'm a goalie, but if someone comes down on a breakaway and does that, I honestly don't think it should count. It's not hockey. And I think there should be a limit on how often, like how long you can have a puck on your stick. They have to look into it. They have to.
What are you referring to? His goal?
The lacrosse style goal. I'm not talking about flipping the puck. I'm talking about a lacrosse style goal.
Oh, I thought
I can come down on a breakaway, flip the puck up, have it on the stick, and move it around like he's got it in a lacrosse stick and score a goal. I don't like it. I don't want to ever see it in the National Hockey League, but you can do it right now, and it's just a matter of time before it's done.
I thought that you were talking about the blindfolded goal he scored where he should have won the shootout challenge off of. No, okay. So I'm aware of what you're talking about. I personally don't have a problem with it. More offense, more creativity. Yeah, you don't like it because you're a goalie. Too bad. Stop it.
No. If a guy did that to me, then look out.
I don't like that goalies can leave their crease and cry foul when guys run into them. Like, too bad.
I don't leave my crease, so it doesn't matter.
Well, of course you don't. You can't.
Okay. Okay, I get it.
So I understand what you're saying.
Apparently, from what I was told, though, from the TSN guys, is the league is discussing if they want to put a rule into place now to prohibit such a act. Maybe they allow it from behind the red light, like behind the net only, to be able to tuck it in that way. But
I just think this
breakaway or whatever.
Sport already has too many stupid restrictive rules. No, like if maybe put it over your shoulders, fine.
Well, you can't touch it over the shoulder. You can't have it on your stick over the shoulder. That's already illegal.
Well, so then what is there to talk about for me here? Then I have no.
Maybe you haven't seen like a guy on a breakaway pick up the puck like I have in a little like shinny game, and like just you can't stop the puck.
Why not?
As I said, you haven't seen it happen to you. So.
Yes, I have.
You haven't.
I've seen guys do it. It's the trick shots. They're fun. If someone is skilled and talented enough to pull that off, too bad.
Can you put a poll question up this week for us then?
Okay. Yeah, I just don't have a problem with it. What I do have a problem with is the NHL just continuing to go full bore with pizza guy in the desert and allowing the Arizona Coyotes, they've officially signed an agreement with ASU to play in the 5,000 seat D1 college stadium for upwards of 4 years.
You got to think the players love this, first of all.
Dude, how are any of these guys? If I'm Clayton Keller, Chikrin, who's been rumored to be moved anyway, but if I'm Keller, any of these guys, I'm on the phone with my agent immediately.
And I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about
out.
Like hockey related revenues, HRR.
This is going to destroy the players. It's going to destroy the players. And they're already
to 31 teams, basically.
It's 100%. 31 and a half, not even 31 and a quarter.
Yeah, maybe.
Clarky, I do OHL games. There are OHL barns that are bigger than this that hold more people. The Sleeman Center in Guelph can hold more than five, just a little over 5,000 with standing room.
Yeah.
Like the odd, I think the capacity at the odd in Kitchener is like 78. London, you got junior teams that are, come on. What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing, Gary? This is Gary Bettman's legacy. Horrific hockey culture and disgusting stuff allowed to happen in the sport with minimal punishment. Kyle Beach, all of that stuff. The concussion stuff, all of it. The lawsuits from former players with concussions, all that stuff. Horrible culture. Lockouts. More lockouts than any other sport other than baseball, and the only sport that's ever lost an entire regular season to a lockout. And horrific devotion to teams that bleed red ink and are not successful. Bad business practices, worse culture, and awful labor negotiations.
But he'll say
Gary's legacy.
But he'll say, and the owners will say, he's made more money for this league than anyone could.
Yeah, I guess that's all that matters.
That's all that matters to them.
Could make more. Could make
absolutely
more.
It could. Absolutely it could. There's no question it could.
It's embarrassing.
Where does all the league TV revenue come from? The majority of it. Canada. We need another team up here.
It is so embarrassing he's in the Hall of Fame. It's so embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing. I don't know. All right. Well, we'll take one more quick break. When we come back, do you have anything else? Do you got anything else?
It's good. No, it's good.
Okay.
I know you're talking NFL. You're going to talk Super Bowl. I got to run. I got a men's league game tonight in Kurtzville, so I got to run up there. Playing for the Pelicans. Okay, playing for the Pelicans. My son-in-law Ryan Duck's on the team, so we'll be good. Just remember Listowel Vision Care, right? Jenna will be listening. Just make sure you get that right.
I'm hammering it, dude.
I'm going to say Cincinnati 35-25.
Wow. He likes Joe B. He is on the cigar train. I love it.
There you go.
The John Lennon glasses and the cigar. We're going to look for
Cincinnati's going to win.
Okay.
We'll heard it here first.
We'll see what our friend Jake Bolin-Moss from Coolbet thinks about that next here on Instigating with Clarky and Drury. Wrapping things up this week on Instigating with Clarky and Drury, Ryan Drury back here on the program. Very pleased to be joined by our friend from our key sponsor, Coolbet. We're also sponsored by the Listowel Squash Courts and our friends at Listowel Vision Care and See the Game. But from Coolbet, our friend Jake Bolin-Moss. And Jake, it's finally here this weekend, the biggest sporting event in North America on a yearly basis. The Super Bowl is here, and what a story after one of the most, if not the most insane NFL playoffs we've ever seen. So many games coming down to the last play. We've got the young buck in Joe Burrow leading the Cincinnati Bengals into their third Super Bowl appearance ever. They're 0-2 against the old wily veteran that put up with so much crap for so many years in Detroit, Matty Stafford. It's going to be an unbelievable game. What are your thoughts? Who's coming out on top of this thing?
Oh, well, right away. I mean, that feels like the longest 2 weeks of my life getting to the Super Bowl. We're just waiting and waiting and waiting, but it's worth the wait because after this, we're not going to have football for a long while. So excited for the big game. Like you said, it's going to be a crazy one. Stafford, Burrow, all the storylines coming in. I think if you would have told me at the week 8 mark that it was going to be Bengals-Rams, I probably would have told you you're a crazy person. The way the Cardinals were playing in that division. And I mean, the Bengals, I wasn't even sure out of the draft when they didn't go Sewell, when they went Chase. And I was like, come on, guys, you got to protect the guy who got injured last year because you couldn't protect him. It's been just crazy, but Joe Burrow is a stud. Matt Stafford has finally got his time in the spotlight, and one of these guys is going to come out on top. I don't quite know where I want to go with it just yet. 4-point favorites right now are the Rams. That number right there makes me lean Bengals just because, I mean, it's that 4-point. It's a nice little cushion there with the field goal. You'd hope a Super Bowl comes down to the last play, and you hope if it's going to be the last play, hopefully it's a field goal and you can cover on the dog there.
Yeah, 4 is where it sits right now with our friends at Coolbet. I've seen 4.5 as well, which would even more make me lean Bengals. I want to throw you, folks, if you're into sports gambling, Coolbet's the way to go. They've got the bet builder tool, and this is the type of event that you yank that tool out of the toolbox and you use it. And I've got one here, my 6-pick bet builder, and I'm going to throw it to the expert, Mr. Bolin-Moss here, and see what he thinks of it. Okay. So I have Rams money line. I've got Rams money line. I think ultimately the defense, we talked about it on this episode with our friend George Ofman from Chicago. I just think their defense is the difference. Aaron Donald and Von Miller are going to be hunting Joey B down. I still think he's going to get his cookies, but they won't be enough to fill up the dinner plate at the end of the game. I've got Cooper Kupp over 89.5 yards. Easy money, in my opinion. I've got Joe Burrow. Like I said, I think he's going to get his cookies. Over 254.5 passing yards. Might be tough, but this guy got sacked 9 times in the divisional round and still won the game and had over 254 yards, I might add. Cooper Kupp, anytime score. Joe Mixon, anytime score. And total points under 48.5. That is my bet builder, and I pass it off to the expert, Mr. Bolin-Moss. What do you think of that?
All right. Well, I mean, let's break it down. Rams, money line, I like. They're the favorite coming in. Like we mentioned, 4-point favorite. If I had to pick a winner, I think it's going to be Rams. Obviously, that spread makes a difference. So Rams money line, I like. Then it was Kupp. Kupp's been a stud all year. He's been putting up numbers on everybody. I think Kupp's going to get he's going to get the ball a ton. I think 90 yards is no problem for Kupp. You think about you think about a guy like Joe Burrow. If they're down early in the game, you're going to see a lot more passing, 255 yards. Seems reasonable. I mean, it's a Super Bowl. They're not going to hold him back. He's going to have his opportunities, throw the ball, try to find Chase on some deep stuff. So 254, I don't think that's crazy. And then it was Mixon and Kupp to score.
Anytime.
Yeah, someone's going to have to score. We want fun in the Super Bowl. Even though you have the under, we want to see touchdowns. So Kupp, I think he's definitely going to find himself in the end zone. I don't think that's going to be an issue. Mixon might be the only one where I'm a little, I don't know. But he is their go-to back. I don't think you're going to see a lot of the other guys in the backfield. So if they do get down, goal line scenario, anything like that, hand it to your horse, let him get in the end zone. I like it. 6 plays. What was that paying? What was the
that is a $5 bet with 3,300. That's plus 3,300 on $5. That'll get you a cool $170 Canadian, ladies and gentlemen.
Perfect. And I want to say one thing about the bet builder. We just released a promo today for the Super Bowl. It's a $10 bet on the bet builder, and you receive that $10 in bonus the following day on the Monday. So if you want to take your shot, free bet on the bet builder, this is your time. It's a great tool. I know a lot of my buddies love to use it. We want to get everyone trying it out. So $10 free on the bet builder for the biggest game of the year.
Absolutely. How can you say no to that? If you're into sports gambling and you want to throw a little action down, or you just love the Super Bowl, you think it's a fun event, you want to toss a little bit of spare change in the couch cushions around, the bet builder on Coolbet is the way to go, ladies and gentlemen. Jake, it's always a pleasure. I can't wait to break this down with you next week. We'll have you back on. We'll break down what we see. Like I said before we went on air, we're either going to see Joey B walking around with his John Lennon shades and a cigar, or we're going to see Matty Stafford, probably some tears, a lot of hard years in Detroit, lifting the Lombardi. I can't wait. It's going to be an excellent Super Bowl. We appreciate your insight as always, my friend.
Yeah, thanks so much. This is awesome.
All right, everybody. Remember, you can watch the show Friday nights at 8, Sunday nights at 9 on Whiteman TV, Channel 6. We debut on YouTube at 9 on Friday nights as well after the show airs on Whiteman. We're on all the best podcast apps, including Spotify and Apple. You can follow us on social media at Instigating Pod. This has been Instigating with Clarkie and Jury, brought to you by Coolbet, the Listowel Squash Courts, and our friends at Listowel Vision Care and See the Game. We appreciate our friend Jake Bolin-Moss from Coolbet coming on. We'll talk about the Super Bowl next week. Enjoy the big game and use that bet builder.